So we've talked about how species engage with each other. We've talked about what eats what. Now we're going to look at the ecosystem as a whole. How an ecosystem can be utterly destroyed, and then how it rebuilds itself. Now here's the deal. All across the earth, life will find a way. Life will return to an area. There are going to be disturbances, fires, droughts, heck, humans clear-cutting things. And then there's ecological succession, life returning to the area. The life may be different, and you end up with an entirely different species composition and species diversity, but life returns. There are some organisms out there that are environmental engineers. We're one of them. We will change the environment to suit our needs, but there are plenty of others. Beavers. Beavers are environmental engineers. They will take a creek and create a pond from it. They're doing that because they want to eat the fish. So they're creating their own little fishing holes all over the place. So instead of directly interacting with other species, they're just shifting the environment. Environments can be changed, though, through other mechanisms called disturbances. These could be in sudden events, natural events, storms, fires, floods, droughts, humans coming in and clear-cutting. This alters the amount of resources present, which alters the carrying capacity of the region. These disturbances are going to influence species diversity, and they're also going to influence composition. Here at the top, you can see a forest after a forest fire. Immediately afterwards, what do you notice on the ground? No grass. Shortly thereafter, though, it returns. The low-lying shrubs get wiped out. The taller trees are still there. They're blackened. They might be husks. But eventually, life comes back. Slightly different than it was before, but it comes back. You get a change in the composition of community structure after a disturbance, after a fire, after a flood. There might be new ratios of organisms. Ecological succession happens when the disturbed areas gets replaced by by another species or another group. Succession is where you start off, and this is my favorite cartoon of Succession. You start off, you got a nice forest, there's a disturbance, the forest is destroyed. There's nothing. You've got ashes on the ground. But over time, plants, herbaceous plants primarily, start to grow in the ashes. Then softwood plants, followed by hardwood plants. You succeed. Life comes back. Primary succession occurs when you're moving from entirely lifeless to full of life. Primary, so first. This is the first inhabitation of an area. A new volcanic island, for instance, is going to be entirely lifeless. You start off with literally lava spewing out of the ground. Not much can survive there. And then you get changes in that composition over time. The first life forms that come in are going to be the protists, the prokaryotes, bacteria, little things. They end up, say, on an island. This isn't a picture of it, but Krakatoa, for instance, exploded. There was an island there, and then the next day there was no more island there. Literally, this happened 150 years ago. With the sound, from what the records say, traveled around the world 2 to 3 times. It was the loudest sound ever recorded by humans. The island was gone. Over time, magma came out of the earth and formed a new island. There was nothing on there. Bacteria moved on first from the seas. Protists come on the island. Lichens began to grow. Now, we talked about lichens previously as soil builders. As lichen breaks down the rocks, you begin to build up soils. Soil lets plants establish themselves. Plants get established because seeds blow in, dispersal mechanisms. Seeds wash up on shore from the island, from the sea. Seeds come from the air, land on the ground, start to grow. From there, you can lead into more, higher levels of succession. You go from herbaceous plants, plants with sort of bendy stems, to hardwood, to softwood plants like pine trees. Then those pine trees end up getting replaced by hardwood trees, until finally you're right back to where you started. Maybe slight differences in the composition of the plants, slight differences in the number of a specific species of plant, the ratio of different species. Maybe new species came in, but you've got life again. So the secondary succession happens when the disturbance leaves behind intact soil. That is, the soil's still alive. You're not starting from scratch. After a fire, the soil is still alive. During the succession, you're going to have changes in species coming through. Some are going to be early pioneers. They're going to be followed up by late arriving species that interact. The early pioneers may end up having either positive or negative interactions with the later arriving organisms. They might facilitate their arrival to help build up the area, or they might actively try to prevent them from coming. With human interactions, when you have new groups of humans interacting with each other, usually things don't go well. So one type of organism may be facilitative. The initial species lays the groundwork for later species. A beaver comes in. What does a beaver do? Builds a dam, right? So what happens behind the dam? Water comes in and floods. That facilitates the arrival of fish, which can become the dominant species. So you start off with land-based. You have one species helping the other species adapt to the region. Facilitative. Might be inhibitive. The initial species actively discourages the other species from colonizing. Plants do this. They're going to put out poison through their roots in order to stop other plants from growing. They're inhibitive, inhibiting their arrival. And then finally, we've got tolerant, where we just don't care. The initial species does not provide a benefit nor a detriment to the new species. So 3 ways that species can interact in succession. They can either be facilitative, helping the new species arrive; inhibitive, stopping them from coming in; or tolerant, neither helping nor hindering them from their arrival.